What does it mean to live more with less? I'm Katie Wells, and welcome to the Maximized Minimalist Podcast. If you found yourself caught up in the hamster wheel of modern-day motherhood and want to rewrite the script, congratulations, you're in the right place. I'm here to be your guide and help you take back your motherhood and achieve a simpler, more joy-filled life. Cheers to being a maximized minimalist. Enjoy the show. Happy December, friend. 'Tis the season for toy clutter. Actually, not really, because that's the whole point of today's episode. We want to avoid some of this toy clutter that you might be nervously anticipating coming in just a few weeks. So I get lots of questions this time of year. How do I make space for new toys? How do I get my kids on board with donating? Like all the things. So we're going to cover it all, from making room for these new gifts, teaching kids about giving, simple steps to get started. So let's start with one big question. You might not have consciously, but I promise you, your subconscious mind is thinking this. Katie, why should I declutter the toys before Christmas when there's already so much going on? I'm prepping, baking, cooking. I'm doing a bajillion things, holiday activities. Like I don't have time to declutter. I mean, let's all raise our hands. We've all thought this before. So it's simple. The holiday season is filled with excitement, but you and I both know how quickly that excitement can turn into overwhelm come mid-morning on Christmas Day when there's toys all over the house, the kids are already bored, and you're overwhelmed. There's no spot to put all the things. I used to feel so frustrated and resentful about this process many, many years ago. And it, in reality, set me and my home back. And when I say set me back, I'm talking about my stress levels. I was stressed inside my home for at least 2 months. I would say through February. It took me that long to feel like I regained control of my physical environment. And that's a long time to deal with that stress and overwhelm. I don't want that for you. And I certainly don't miss that part of my life. And I'm not saying like don't buy new toys or, tell your in-laws to not buy any toys for your kids again. But with all the new toys that you maybe are anticipating coming in, whether they're from you or other people, the gifts, the decorations, things get chaotic fast. And here's what I wish someone would have told me back then. Decluttering before the holidays or maybe a birthday, right? When you're anticipating more to come in, isn't about perfection. And you don't need to do a huge overhaul in order to make a difference. And I wish someone would have told me, Katie, this is about carving out breathing room to make your holiday season more enjoyable, right? Because let's face it, I'm the one that noticed the mess the most. I'm the one that felt the impacts, the mental health impacts, the stress level, all the things, the anxiety. I felt those impacts more than anyone else in my house. So again, I wanted that to be a more enjoyable process for me. And even these small declutters can go a long way. 30 seconds here, 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there, fitting that into the nooks and crannies of your day and integrating that into the natural rhythm of your day can just skyrocket your progress. Okay? Decluttering before the holidays gives everything also a new home. So new gifts aren't just added to the pile. All the new gifts in my house were added to the floor. They were on the floor, overwhelming me. I was tripping over them until February the next year. So less mess, fewer things to clean up, and more time to actually enjoy the holidays. There, I pled my case. All right, can we move on? And can you just say, yes, Katie, I will focus on doing clutter audits and these micro declutter sessions and get the thought out of my head that I have to do a huge overhaul. Even if, yes, your play space, your child's play space may benefit from a huge overhaul. Maybe that's not possible right now. Get used to progress, not perfection. Tough love there. Now, a question I get all the time. How do I get my kids to be okay with donating their toys? All right, this question is so loaded and nuanced and complex and layered because we're dealing with human beings, okay? We're not dealing with robots. And I think sometimes we forget this. At least I know I do. We all hope our kids are going to eagerly embrace the idea of donating toys that they haven't played with in 6 months to those in need. And imagining, the joy their old fire truck or dollhouse could bring to another child. But in reality, I'm telling you, my boys were not ever really like this. And I thought, wow, I'm raising really ungrateful kids. Or wow, I'm really struggling at this parenting thing because my kids aren't naturally on board with letting go. That's not the case. All right, it's not the case at all. And for me, I will say my boys, it seemed like they rediscovered their favorites like the moment you suggest letting them go. You're like, you haven't used this fire truck in 6 months. No, that's my favorite. Right? A lot of us have experienced that. They cling tighter. And once I gave myself permission to say like, listen, my kid is a human, not a robot, that's okay because learning generosity is a process. So instead of focusing on their stuff, I was like, why don't I model it myself and involve my kid in age-appropriate ways? So from a toy perspective, if you want to focus there, obviously this is about toy clutter. Younger kids might select 1 or 2 toys they no longer play with. Well, maybe your older aged kiddos could help choose a charity, assuming they're on board with that, right? And even participate in the donation drop-off. I've worked with so many families over the years, and I will say if they have like a younger kid, let's just say like 3 or 4 or 5, and an older kid, maybe 8, 9, 10, who can developmentally grasp the concept of generosity and paying it forward. When there's an older kid who is on board, that can really, really help onboard the younger, like the littles quicker too, because big brother or big sister is like, hey, here's what we're doing. Not always, but I feel like that's a common pattern. So if you have an older kid who might be interested in doing that and kind of setting, again, your littles are learning by example, not just from you, but from their older siblings. That could be a really great place to get started too. Now, I want to stress this because yes, children learn by example. So before tackling their toy collection, maybe after the holidays, when you are decluttering other areas, you can start with your own belongings. This is something I always tell people, like, the conversation and the process of onboarding your kids to donating their own stuff, whether it's their toys, their sports equipment, or their clothes, it starts before you even are in that space. It starts before you walk into their bedroom or their play space. So invite your kids to declutter a kitchen drawer with you. Invite your kids to help you bag up some clothes you donated from your closet or even a pile of books. Invite them into the process. This shows your child that decluttering is a natural part of maintaining a home, and it helps build trust by starting in a space that doesn't directly affect them. So important. And I'm telling you, this is the way, more than anything, that my kids have onboarded in a more natural way and organic way, I should say. I didn't have to force them. I didn't have to bribe them. And if you want to do that, go ahead. Hey, if we get rid of 10 gifts, then maybe you'll get a bigger gift. There's nothing wrong with that. Everyone does things a little bit differently. But remember, going back to what I just said, decluttering is a natural part of maintaining a home. And is it a one-time event or is it ongoing? It's ongoing. And if you want your child to understand that, inviting them in or showing them what you've done in other spaces can be so fruitful. This is a skill, in my opinion, that evolves with age and experience. So maybe your 3-year-old is not on board. Give them time, give them space, do some of these things we just talked about, and even in really small ways. And at some point, they'll learn that decluttering isn't a chore, but can be a really empowering practice that keeps their space calm, functional, organized, and feeling really good for them. The next tip I have, establish clear boundaries. A well-organized home thrives on boundaries, just like healthy relationships. We have boundaries, people. In our house, when my kids were little and had more toys in the home than they certainly do now, they're into sports gear and hobby gear, stuff like that. We used to use a 6-cube cubby from Home Depot, nothing fancy, for toys in rotation. And then I had some out of rotation toys stored in a closet. So when the cubbies overflowed, right, when those 6-cube cubbies overflow, it's time to pare down. This helps kiddos understand limits. And I think it's important that they don't feel that deprivation, and it makes tidying up more manageable for everyone. There's 6 cubes, and I remember River when he was about 3.5, maybe 4, when it started to overflow, he's like, hey, we need to let some stuff go. Maybe he didn't say it in that exact words, but because it was a visual boundary, he could clearly see that we needed to do something about it. Tailor the process for your kid. I think this is so important to approach it to their personalities. Again, as I shared earlier, some kids are natural organizers and really might love helping you sort or declutter, and others are more attached to their things. It shouldn't be a surprise to us because we're the same way as adults, right? And it might work best to do a quick declutter when they're busy with something else for the littles. For older kids, you can frame it as making room for new toys or helping someone in need if you think that, that would be helpful in the onboarding process. The key is to keep it positive and manageable. I also wanted to recap some great opportunities of places that tend to accept gently used toys, because it's nice to have that in mind sometimes before you're bagging things up, especially if you know certain categories are going to certain locations. So of course, you've got your local charities and shelters. These are likely something you're already taking advantage of. Many accept toy donations year round. Hospitals and pediatric clinics, I feel aren't often considered, but some use toys in play areas for younger patients. Of course, before you assume and just drop off a bunch of toys, always make a phone call to see what they're accepting, what condition it can be in, etc. But that can be a really powerful way to pay it forward. Community toy drives tend to be really big this time of year. Schools, churches, other organizations often run these holiday drives. I know our church and our son's school is doing this. And then online gifting groups. Don't forget the power of just, again, the virtual connection through your local Buy Nothing group or Facebook groups that can allow you to give toys directly to families in your community. If you want your child to experience that like dopamine hit that we experience, you and I have felt this when we've maybe passed on some clothes to someone locally in your community. When you see their face absolutely light up, there's like nothing sweeter. You can't buy that feeling. Like if I buy something new, I don't even get that large of a dopamine hit. So again, if you want to invite your kid into that process to help them grasp that, because you can't put that into words, right? Like you feel it in your heart, that could be a really profound way to help them understand, not only the declutter process, but like what happens when it leaves our home and goes into someone else's and how it blesses others. All right, so here's the takeaway. Decluttering toys before Christmas doesn't have to be a big time-consuming task, right? You're nodding your head yes. Hopefully, maybe you got a little decluttering in while you listen to this episode. And it's really about setting the stage for a holiday season for you and your kiddos that feels lighter, calmer, and more intentional. So create a little more space now and you make room for more joy and more space logistically and practically speaking for the influx of toys that your kid's about to receive and hopefully love and use for years to come. And speaking of simplifying, if you are looking for ways to give thoughtful, meaningful gifts without adding to the clutter, whether it's for a kid, a partner, a mother, your bestie, whatever, I put together a clutter-free gift guide just for you that is packed with ideas that focus on experiences, consumables, and other meaningful gift categories that don't take up space, but still bring so much joy to the people you love. It is only $3. You can find the link in the show notes, so go grab your copy. And I hope it makes your holiday season feel a bit easier and just like more joyful, right? This is why we do what we do. Thank you for hanging out with me today. Here's to a peaceful, clutter-free holiday season. You know what to do. Ready, set, simplify, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.